Hello, everybody. My name is Brian Germain, and this is Casual Chat. And we have a famous skydiver of many, many years, one of the founding fathers of the wingsuit flying movement. We have Jari Kuosma. Welcome.
Hello, Brian. Thank you very much for having me.
I miss you, dude.
I miss you too. It's been a few years since I last talked.
Yeah, it has been a long time, but we're gonna be getting back to normal and traveling again before too long, and hopefully we'll get up to Sverige, right? You're in Sweden?
I'm in Sweden, yeah. About 1 hour north from Stockholm.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. And you must be super jazzed about the wingsuit wind tunnel.
Well, I actually haven't been flown there, not once. I kind of like the real thing, but it's really cool that they have it there. I've been there. I've been to the facilities a few times.
Oh, it's amazing. It's amazing technology. And I understand, for old purists like us, it kind of seems like a bird in a cage, but I think it's going to help a lot of people.
Mm-hmm. That's very true. And it gives, some possibilities for people to, practice and, maybe get rid of some fears and whatever. And it brings some self-confidence and so on. And it's just really cool that they have it there. So that's great.
Yeah, absolutely. So I was trying to remember, where we first crossed paths. If it was, the Carolina Sky Sports back in the 90s, I remember giving a seminar that you.
Sky Sports, I remember really, really well.
Yeah.
And the free fall convention, the first one I ever attended was, wait a second, that must have been 99. What was the one in 99?
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was and at that point, people have to understand the historical context here. Wingsuit is huge now. I mean, every drop zone's got wingsuit flyers. Back then, there was just a couple of people.
Yeah, that's right. I remember I came to first World Free Fall Convention, and that's probably when we met. And I just came from Wishy Booby. And that was the place where I introduced the wingsuits for the first time. And before that, we had smuggled the suits from the factory in Slovenia, to EU. I went to the Wishy, and it was quite the story there because it was a new thing. It was the first commercial product of the sort. And over there in Wishy, we met quite a few of these crazy French guys who had made their own homemade suit. And there were something like, maybe not the full dozen, but more than half a dozen guys. And we brought there a whole bunch of suits so that the newbies can try with them as well. And I also introduced my first flight program there, because first they didn't really want us, they didn't know who we were, and they didn't want us to really go and do any harm. And they show that they have their one list of requirements, what they need. And it was basically like one page of few lines, what you should know before flying the wingsuit. And then I said that, okay, I'm prepared. And I had a 7-page thing.
When we were getting started with this stuff, I had, there was Katerina. You remember Katerina? And Adrian was making those suits. And they were so complicated. With all the grommets, you remember grommets with clothes, right? And they sent me one as well at the early days where there was just a couple, and I think you said there was some French folks that were experimenting somewhere.
Yeah, in Vichy there were like about a dozen people or so who had their homemade suits, and we were having great there. Yeah, they were all, homemade and self-made, and various different kind of styles and sizes and technologies and so on. Some quite wild, some smaller ones, and some really big ones, huge ones too, and so on. But it didn't matter,
Yep, yeah. But when I saw the Birdman products at Quincy, it was for the first time. I was really impressed with the simplicity of how you kind of solve the problem, you and Robert, right? Where I guess worked together to come up with this piano hinge method for the cutaways. It was very clean looking, and as a rigger and a parachute designer, immediately I was like, these guys clearly know what they're doing. And you really, you created, in my opinion, you guys created the mainstream wingsuit movement.
Yeah, for sure. Because it was the business. The idea was that it has to be simple enough so it can be operated and thought, and it has to be manageable as well, so that there wouldn't be accidents and gear-related problems, because it was so radical, even just the idea, in the beginning. It was actually illegal, to fly wingsuit in Finland, whereas testing the first ones and so on. So it was really, really crucial that everything goes smoothly and well, and that we didn't cause any bad blood within the skydive. I mean, people were scared enough, so we didn't need any problem with the gear.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. The hard part, I think, was making the transition from just thinking like a skydiver to thinking like a flyer. In terms of the flight planning and just this whole shift, people just didn't have that concept. We didn't even do tracking jumps so much back in.
That's right. It had to be brought to the attention and consciousness of the skydiving that we are doing the 3D stuff instead of 2D. And the 3D means that we have this extra dimension there where we travel, and suddenly all the the distance that you travel when you fly and you go flocking, you have to be aware now all the time, where you're going. You can't just, be aware of your altitude, but also, the distance where you go. And in the beginning, and how to, many people end up in somewhere really far away. That's another danger, because I came, my background was AFF instructor and so on. So it was, I was, accustomed to teach first-time jumpers, and in many ways, I had to approach teaching to very experienced skydivers exactly the same way as we are teaching, first-timers to jump. That there are these new aspects, in the safety and how to get the other people around and what you're doing there.
Yeah, the actual flying part of it it's pretty intuitive, right? I remember you saying to my friend Robert Kitila, I remember, another Finn. You're in the plane and riding to altitude, and you'd give him the basic safety briefing about cutaways and that sort of thing. But finally, at like 8,000 feet, he says, "But how do I fly this thing? I don't understand, how to fly." He said, "You said to him, you were a bird in another life. You will remember." and he did. He did great, and he fell in love with it, and he got a suit.
Mm-hmm.
But that part of it, I feel like people that are considering getting into wingsuit flying, I say, don't worry so much about when it's going well, because that's pretty natural. There's some subtle things that people need to learn about body position to maximize efficiency. But which parts of wingsuit flying do you feel like people really need to focus on that are relevant to their safety? The most important stuff. What would you list off as the key points that are like, you got to focus on this?
Well, I tend to think holistically about all these things. So one should be able to, the take into account the whole big picture. Mm-hmm. So, not only to know how to fly, which you say it's quite intuitive, but to understand how the gear works, how you yourself work as an athlete and body, how your emotions work, how you control your fear, for example, and all these things, how human being works, how you yourself work, and how the other skydivers around you work, because many times those other people around you can be a big danger as well. Then, of course, you have to learn about the weather, how the weather and air works, mm-hmm. and then technology there as well, not only your suit, but also your skydiving gear, how that works together with them. And even to the point that if you want to know everything, you should know how the planes and the pilots work too. So you should know about everything. So it's not a very simple question. But of course, we all start from the beginning, and we have to gradually, get up there and so on. So all these things comes, but as a good flyer, you should work on to the connecting all those dots together and become a whole.
Yeah. Well, like for instance, like I had a wingsuit try to kill me in Finland once, where I exited lower than I should have. We had it was a canopy course. So we're all getting out at 7,000 feet above the ground. And I didn't see any reason why I couldn't at least get myself a nice little 30-second flight before opening. And I went out and got spinning. I didn't slow. The airplane didn't slow down on jump run, so I was worried about the tail, and I didn't present very well because I was wanting to just fall below the aircraft, and I ended up in a crazy ass spin. I ended up saving my own life, but it was scary. I spun really fast, and you don't see those YouTube videos. Mostly on YouTube, you see cool wingsuit flying where everything's going well, and people will come from the WOFO category, go to the drop zone, take AFF because they want to be a wingsuit flyer, and they might not realize that this crazy stuff once in a while, bad exits or bad barrel roll attempts, it can really kick your ass. So what would you say about recovery from instability?
Well, yeah, that's right. On my first flight course, one of the main aspects was how to get out from the flat spin. And I guess flat spin was kind of thing that you experienced there. Mm-hmm. And that's why, of course, how we approach to that whole pull time procedure and how you open the parachute with the wingsuit when your flight is over. It's really, really important because even a small mistake there can give you imbalance and you may end up into the situation that we described, the flat spin. So that's why we had procedures there, and that's why also we have this hallway system for the wings.
Yeah.
Because the wings were obviously something that can catch a lot of air, and if you have a problem, it's not only how to get to your risers and so on, but how to get rid of the wings when you fly so that you can get stable again. I remember there was this one guy called, he still is, Andy Ford, one of the Birdman instructors, and he experienced really bad flat spin in England, I think. He was spinning so fast that his eyes went completely red and stayed like that for like few weeks and something like that. So much blood came there. And it's been measured that flat spin can be so incredibly violent. You get so much G to your head that you can lose consciousness and maybe even die.
Yeah. Well, in my case, it was every axis at once at first, and it settled into an inverted flat spin.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And
which can slow you down. It's kind of interesting, but it can really slow you down too. Like it can slow you down so much that your cyclist doesn't even work.
It's possible. Yeah, which is why thankfully some of the companies like AirTech have come up with a wingsuit Cypress. I think that's really cool. Just so that
I noticed that. Yeah, mm-hmm. That's really, really cool. And it's interesting that we were testing that from the early days as well, for the Cypress and keeping that data and sending it to them. And they wanted to get the algorithm working so that it could work in all these different scenarios. But it turned out to be so difficult task that it's only recently that they released that kind of software, and of course, it's probably also that they'll be waiting that the market is big enough. I don't really know, but all the factors,
Yeah, it's
I think it's a very difficult process to calculate really, just the right speeds, and the variations there because it can really change dramatically. I mean, we fly so much slower with the wingsuit than we can do with the fast parachute.
Mm-hmm. Right, exactly. That's why they've gone in that direction of multiple units. Now, one of the things that I was taught when I when I started teaching, because I started wingsuiting just like you, not having any plan. There was no guidelines, rules, lists, flow charts, none of that. But later on, when I started teaching, I had a few people tell me, like Jarno Cordia and others, that if ABCs, right? The arch, if that doesn't work to get yourself stable, then ball up. Interesting.
That was all written, before I released the wingsuits on my first flight course. That's how we got them.
Right. Arch, ball up, in canopy, right? Throw the pilot chute is the C, arch, ball up, canopy. However, I also had Mo Valeto and some others suggest actually flying out of it, sticking your feet out and driving forward out of a spin, even if it means going head down out of it. That's better than trying to stop the spin while you're falling straight down, essentially, to actually get free.
Yeah, if you're spinning.
Yeah. Actually drive out of it.
Yeah. You can. That was always the one thing in the manual, that if balling up or cutting your wings doesn't work, one thing is to dive out from it. Mm-hmm. So just be ball and just go for it.
Yeah. Which is not intuitive, because you go through AFF and you're thinking about, okay, well, I'm in a flat spin. I need to give counter input. Like reversing the pitch on a prop or whatever to try to stop it in place. And then once I stop, I can start, tracking again. Mm-hmm. And it made sense to me. Yeah, I haven't been in a spin since then. I've been, really careful about how I exit and, and all that stuff, and making sure the airplane gives a good cut. But I think that's worth exploring. And I'm hoping somebody is brave enough to make a video of deliberate flat spins and tumbly spins, showing this flying out of it method.
Yeah, I remember we did that. Actually, during first free fall convention, we were doing or trying to do at least some videos of that, where I went deliberately into these positions, and then I cut my wings there in the free fall, just to show that how it works and to make the video. But back in those days, video production and all that wasn't so easy as today, and there was no YouTube, and so on. So it's probably somewhere in the history book, the big video books, there are these videos.
Yeah. Well, it's just an idea, but it can get dangerous once in a while. In the other part of it is pull time. I don't know if you'd want to talk a little bit more about the pulling safety with wingsuit flying, if you have any.
Well, the way, first of all, is of course to get the enough space, for yourself, so it's the break off. And then after the break off, we also taught how to show to the others that now I'm about to pull, which was not with the hands, we didn't.
That's not an option.
we did it with the legs.
Yep.
It kind of looks funny, but just putting legs together, which was much easier that time, because the wings were smaller and they were easier to de-inflate, so you could actually do it very easily. Nowadays, with there's so much pressure that it's kind of hard to actually even do. But with those beginner wingsuits, and then it was easy. So anyway, you show that, okay, I'm gonna pull. After that, you arch, and the idea was that when you arch, you stop forward momentum. You transition the flight from level more going down, and then you bring your both hands at the same time symmetrically. Until you touch your hacky sack, and then you just throw. And that's the procedure that we have been teaching very successfully,
Yeah. That's basically the way I teach it as well. There's a lot of folks that are teaching to flare, to deliberately, flare the wingsuit, not just arch, but actually go to a higher angle of attack for a moment, slow things down. And I think it's great, and I do it. I just want to make sure that when people are thinking of it, that they understand that you don't pull while you're flared, because you got such a big burble, your pilot chute won't go anywhere, even with a long bridle and a big pilot chute. And I'm not so convinced that a huge pilot chute is such a good idea anyway. But
correct, yeah, I do the flaring as well, and I made a huge mistake, arc on one of the base jumps. I actually had that experience, and my parachute was caught in the burble, and it was there for the few seconds. I was sure I was going to go in, but just before it caught the air, and I was just fighting until the end with my both hands. So then my position changed. When I went head down, then it was catching air, and I was just safe before the rocks.
Right. Which is, I
learned that hard way.
Yeah, I taught you exactly. Well, I have too. So you pitch, and then you drop your nose, and then you pull. That's the sequence. And I feel like the first flight should just be a bunch of those. To flare, drop your nose, practice pull, get under control, maybe make a turn if you need to, so you don't land in the next, city, and then do it again. Flare, drop the nose, pitch.
Mm-hmm.
It's the most important part of the jump is getting a parachute over your head.
Yeah, exactly. And try to get it so that it opens straight too, because that was also always, we got many line twists, during the opening that happens often. And so of course it's very important that you're symmetrical, because when your direction changes just a little bit, it's very easy to get,
Yeah. I grab them.
Me too, always, absolutely always.
I can't grab that, but I can grab that.
I can always grab, here.
Yeah, you do it too. Yeah, of course. I mean, I've been trying to also force myself to think about, as it's rotating me over and I'm grabbing my risers to level, I bring my knees together and bend my legs so that I've got less leg drag. I found my leg wing was kicking me around if I let it do whatever it wanted to. So I started doing that just as a...
Well, that's the thing. That was the one reason that, when you showed the others that I'm going to open that single with the legs, you keep the leg closed. Because if you have it open and then you are just need a little bit asymmetrical, it might be that your parachute opens completely straight, but you start spinning underneath that.
Yep.
So that's not good either. So you have to control the whole sequence and everything.
Yeah. So how many jumps do you think somebody should have before they start wingsuit flying?
Well, in my manual, it was in the beginning 500 jumps, and then quite quickly it was around 2,000. I started 99 with the business, around 2,000, lowered it to 200. And it's still working just fine.
Yeah. The folks like us that started, way back when at the beginning of it, all of us had thousands of jumps, and now it's considered to be pretty okay. 200 or 300 jumps they're flying a wingsuit, and I just wanted to get just another voice pointing to the sort of suggestion that maybe you should wait. I understand maybe you have the bare minimum in your country. The rules are you can have a camera at this number of jumps and you can have your wingsuit at this number of jumps, but why just do it as soon as you're allowed when you can just wait another year or two and become a better skydiver first?
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, it depends very much on the person. There are some people who are just natural and they can follow the instruction like clockwork. I have had some Olympic athletes who I was coaching, and they were like clockwork. They can do many things, much earlier than the regular Joe, let's say. But then you do have, some other instances where the people make 50 jumps a year, 20 jumps a year. And so they might have their 200 jumps, in 5 years, then that's obviously not enough. But if you have done 200 jumps in the past year, since it's your AFF, you are probably quite current and good to go.
Yeah. And the time in the sport as well, just being around the campfire and having those conversations, it takes time to get all the information. So you can bang out all the jumps you want in the first month and be qualified.
Right.
But you haven't been around long enough to know those little details. You don't know what you don't know. I think that.
Yeah, you're almost talking about the 100th monkey effect. Do you know about that?
Yeah, I know the concept, but you can communicate it. Go ahead.
But basically, the idea is that there is like this consciousness within the group, and as the group consciousness grows, even the monkeys that are not in close proximity of the group, even they get that knowledge.
Yes.
Somehow. So as the group learns, everybody learns.
Yeah. The quantum non-local aspect of information.
Yeah.
That's and we've even seen there was another monkey related study, and it had nothing to do with quantum information, but they put these sweet potatoes on the beach, and the monkeys would come out of the forest and eat the sweet potatoes, so that as a result, now the people could watch the monkeys and learn and study their behaviors, and that was the whole point of it. And this one clever little monkey was like, there's sand all over this sweet potato. I don't want to eat it. So he went in the ocean and he washed the sweet potato off. And the other monkeys were like, damn, that's a good idea. And so they started doing it. And then it became this, sort of universal thing that they started washing off all kinds of things in the ocean as a ritual. That wasn't so weird. The teaching through example, not so weird. Even how that can possibly become new habits that are genetically predisposed, right? We have that possibility. The weird part was on the other islands, they started washing their food off too. Mm-hmm. So I feel like now we're at the phase where the general public knows wingsuiting. They've seen videos of how we turn, how we fly, and they can imagine it a whole lot better. So I think it's going to be a lot easier to be able to teach people how to fly wingsuits as far as the skill of it. The part that's not intuitive and not so easy to spread is the little details. Like we're talking about pull time, what to do in a spin, what to do about planning your pattern so you don't land off the drop zone, because you have the power to ruin a perfectly good spot now.
Absolutely. And of course, what you're saying now, it's in the global consciousness, so to speak, because it's in the movies and magazines and YouTube and everywhere so much. So the people who never even thought about skydiving, they see all these cool movies and superheroes fly the actual wingsuit. But usually these scenes are not very realistic. Yeah. So they get the certain idea, flying like the Superman, but they forgot that actually we still need a parachute. We need that technology, which is quite complicated and requires training and time and dedication and sometimes and training. So these rookies kind of forget that very easily, which is completely understandable. That it's not so. It's not just the flying part, but it's all these other things as well.
Yeah. I mean, I think part of the goal needs to be, I want to be a superhero. I want to live out my early childhood dreams of the freedom of flight. And part of it is, I want to be an old wingsuit flyer. I want to be, that guy that's, in mid to late 50s, still walking out to the drop zone, flying around. I want to be the guy that's the mid to late 70s, still walking out to the drop zone with my wingsuit, and I've got a lot of friends, I'll bet you do too, that didn't manage to get old.
Yeah, unfortunately, that's part of this sport, that it is a high risk sport. So we know many.
Yeah, it is high risk, but we knew that going in, so to speak.
Yeah. Or we think we know, and then as the years go by, the realities, kick in, But that's part of the life process, and it's not only skydiving; it's in everything. And I think that the more we do, and more wider variety of things we do and we experience, and we really try to understand and master. We do not only learn about our strengths, but we learn about our weaknesses. And it's very important to learn about those both and get very humble so that you can work on those both, because they all have polarities. And so it's really fun to know about your strength, but what is the polarity of that strength? And then the opposite way, that you know your limits, but then you can work on those limits.
Yes.
and get the exact polar opposite from that. And you can do that through all kinds of martial arts and everything in life, basically. But I think that skydiving is you know, challenging, and there are so many aspects in it that it's a really good school for that kind of thing.
It's an extremely good school. I have not found anything better for discovering who we really are and where we need to improve.
Mm-hmm.
Not who you are, it's just what you did. And if you screwed up, that is vital information that you needed. You just didn't know you needed it.
Exactly. And you know, we and our friends and even our enemies, they are our best teachers. If we just, you know, choose to look at the reality the way it is, and so we can learn from absolutely everything. And there are so many things that happen, you know, within our sport that there is so much to learn all the time.
Isn't that great?
Mm-hmm.
Even if you don't, I mean, a lot of folks will get busy with life or whatever, they don't jump for a while, but it's still part of you. I mean, I've got a lot of friends that, you know, you had babies or whatever it is, and they're not jumping out of planes. Oops, noises in the background, something fell. there's still a piece of you that is the flyer. There's a piece of you that is the explorer, pushing on your weaknesses, pushing against the fear, to be able to get more skillful. It's slowing down your heart
Mm-hmm.
to be able, so that the noodles.
You know, the you know, like in martial arts, the warriors, you know, after they learn their craft, it doesn't mean that they have to be fighting all the time. They will always be the warriors, but they will always, you know, learn the lessons, you know, and then keep at least in shape, you know, with what they have learned, so they can always do it.
Yeah, absolutely. It's all a journey, every bit of it. That's this whole planet is this school.
Absolutely.
On it or above it, it's a school, and we, you know, obviously none of us are absolute avatars or enlightened people, because I don't think we would have been born on this planet if we didn't have some work to do. That's,
well, I mean, isn't that wonderful that there is work to do? Otherwise, it would be quite boring. You know, if you already thought that you know everything, so what else is there to do? But you know, if you have a mindset that there is always something new to learn, you know, then the life is constantly, you know, something which just gives you things to wonder and things to learn.
Yeah. And I have observed that not everybody has that attitude, you know, because, you know, most people seem to be kind of drudging, you know, it's like they're carrying a heavy backpack, you know, sort of dragging their troubles, dragging their complaints. And then you meet somebody like you that's kind of always, you know, up and ready for a fun conversation, ready for some inspiring activity. I think it's a healthier way to see your life, you know, to be in a state of appreciation and readiness for, you know, something new and fun.
Yeah, I think that there is something about treating your entire life as an art project.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, there can be many art projects during one life. You know, who knows how many, but many. And you have to be able to willing also to see that, okay, your art is not always ready, but that's fine. Then you can start another project, you know, and if you see the whole life, something like that, you know, you can keep going.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, without that, there's stagnation, there's apathy, which I feel like is the worst thing in the world, you know, for somebody's life to feel like, well, today is the same as yesterday, and there's nothing I can do to really change my life dramatically. In this learned helplessness, I think it's bogging down a lot of people into this place where they don't expect miracles, they don't expect magic, they don't expect synchronicity, where you just cross paths with some unexpected and exciting possibility, and it changes your life. They're just not expecting it, and so those opportunities come and they go, and the person just sits there with their head down, you know, sort of doing their normal boring life, and it's not true that they were stuck. They just made it true.
And on the other polarity from that, you know, we might have, you know, too many expectations, you know, that are marketed to us all the time. So you know, we have too big expectations about how things should go and who we should be and where we should be and all that stuff. And that also can bring us down when we are not there, because, you know, we just haven't done that kind of work, or life just simply works in the mysterious ways, and often it works in a different way than you thought about it. And to be okay with that, you know, that's a skill as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. It's all an adventure.
Absolutely.
And we're all going to die anyway, so I say, why not? You know,
Yeah, exactly.
things that are worthwhile,
Uh-huh.
do things that are exciting and worth writing about. You know,
Mm-hmm.
is it better to write of things worth doing or do things worth the writing? I mean, a bit of both is great, but I want to live the kind of life where somebody looks back on what I did and say, I feel like I want to write a book about that guy's life, you know, in 100 years from now.
Yeah.
And I think everybody's capable of that, whether it's the human drama of your experiences or, you know, your inventions or your risks that you took.
Mm-hmm.
The transitions through the gradient, you know, pushing up against normal.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And both and sometimes we think that we have only two options, but there is always, you know, more, and to that more, you know, is somebody who you really are, but you just haven't found it maybe yet, and you have to leave room for that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you've done that very, very effectively. I mean, Birdman, not just as a label, but as a lifestyle. I mean, it's well done, you know?
Yeah, I've been trying to live the life that I teach. So thank you very much.
Exactly. Walk the walk. And you got, you know, the watches. Do you still have that stuff going on? Can people get a Birdman watch?
Yeah, sure. I still have some watches, some T-shirts, but not so much commercial stuff right now. But it's very more like a hobby.
Great. Well,
I do have a very, very good brand, you know, and name, and I do doing well. So all good there.
Yeah, well, it's solid and valid, and there's no reason why why people wouldn't want it. It's awesome, and just to get a piece of you, because you're awesome. You've always been one of my favorite people. You got a good vibe, man.
Yeah, you too, Brian. That's for sure.
Yeah. And that's why I wanted to share you with the world. You know, a little bit of a chat as always. But yeah, if there's any place like on the web that you want people to find you, reach out, read, whatever, buy you.
My main platform is www.bird-man.com, and there's basically all the information that you need for now, and then of course later we will come more.
Cool, jättebra. Well, tack så mycket for being here. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian, very much for having me. It was a good chat. It's very good to see you. It's been a while, so it's fun to catch up.
I'll be back at some point. I'll be in your neck of the woods again.
Sure. Stay in touch, man.
I will. All right. Thank you. Have a great day.
Thank you, Brian. Bye-bye.
See ya.
As a young man, Patrick made a few jumps, but was less fascinated by the actual parachuting. It was what you could do before you opened your canopy that excited Patrick. What Patrick really wanted was to fly. Really fly, like a bird. A wingsuit of his design would make Patrick's dream come true. Early versions of the wingsuit, made from a lightweight parachute material, allowed Patrick to move through the air in a way no one had ever done before. Three years after their meeting, Patrick suggested that he and Adrian team up. He taught Adrian to fly his spare wingsuit, and together they flew. This was just the beginning. Their great dream was to explore the possibilities of human flight and set a new world record together. In April 1998, they were in Hawaii shooting a skydiving movie, and between takes jumping the wingsuits. On April 13th, they made a routine test jump. At first, the jump went perfectly. Patrick flying maneuvers in his distinctive orange suit, Adrian beside him in formation, filming. They flew wingtip to wingtip till they reached 3,000 feet. Adrian broke off and pulled his chute. Patrick banked left to open at a lower altitude. Then, on that perfect morning, tragedy struck. Patrick's main canopy couldn't open properly, and the reserve chute became entangled in the remains of the first. He plummeted to earth. A technical fault had ended his dream. After this tragic loss, Adrian wanted to carry on in Patrick's memory, using the original wing design. With the blessing of Patrick's family, Adrian would attempt a record-breaking flight in his honor.
If you're going to jump from 30,000 feet, it's very good procedure to pre-breathe for an hour before you go to that sort of altitude to make sure there's absolutely no nitrogen left in your system. You're saturated with oxygen within a few breaths.
Blood saturated with oxygen also helps to avoid hypoxia, or oxygen starvation. The higher you are, the less oxygen there is. At 30,000 feet, you'll need extra oxygen at all times. If you don't, you will be unconscious in 2 minutes, and very soon, dead.
Skydive 2, radio check.
Read you loud and clear. Figure around flight level 270. We're going to call back for a wind check.
Copy on that.
On the way up, the plane carries jumpers who will exit at the more conventional height of 12,000 feet. Adrian needs to make a practice jump first. Even for a seasoned jumper, high-level jumps are risky.
350, lost 423.
He will exit at 24,000 feet to acclimatize himself to the oxygen system and the cold. Restricted by the wingsuit and the very high airspeed of the plane, Adrian's exit is far from perfect. The next thing anyone sees is his parachute streaming to Earth. He flew for 20,000 feet, but when he deployed the main chute, the twisted lines spun him all over the sky in wild gyrations. He just had time to cut away a wing before he could cut away his main canopy and open his reserve.
Sorry. Give me 2 seconds. It gets pretty busy. I cut away because I couldn't breathe. I'm trying to get up to it and I can't.
It's impossible to untangle a parachute when the wings are still attached. The main canopy had wrapped around his neck and was strangling him as he tried to free the wings.
Before you cut away your main canopy, you've got to get rid of the wings. With the amount of tension and the way that you're hanging in the harness like this, it puts a lot of tension on all the cables running up inside the wings. So it takes more than one go to lose the wings. I got one wing clear. It was time to go then because I'm spinning much harder and the risers are sort of right around here, around your neck on each side. It's like someone just jerking like this, so it's time to go.
This is now the 4th time Adrian has had to fall back on his reserve chute. As the saying goes, any landing you walk away from is a good one. The next morning, it's time for the real thing. A 30,000-foot jump and an attempt to fly further than any other human being in history. It's been a long night for Adrian and Katerina, and naturally, with Patrick on their minds, they've been going over the risks of this record attempt.
Life is a risk. There's a huge risk in life. The biggest risk in life is that you'll waste it. Is that you'll be 80 years old and kicking yourself saying, if only I'd done this, oh, I wish I'd done that. The biggest risk in life is that you waste your opportunity of living it.
Despite everything, they plan to go ahead. They have checked, modified, and rechecked the wings. They have tested every aspect of the suit. But when you're cheating gravity, it's never without risk. Because of the speed Adrian will be traveling, there's no one to fly a camera that can follow him.
He's good to go whenever he wants to go.
His progress will be recorded by GPS, a global positioning computer.
Go, 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 go. So he's within...
At 9:30 on September 23rd, 1998, 5.7 miles above the Earth, Adrian Nicholas exits the plane.
Oakland Center, Kilo 170 Alpha. We have all skydivers away.
The pilot and those on the ground lose contact with him almost immediately. No one sees his chute open. And for a long 30 minutes, no one knows where or how he is. Finally, he's found walking along a farm track 5 miles southwest of the airfield, far beyond anyone's expectations.
Where have you been? Halfway around the world and back. It's a huge crosswind. Flying cut and sideways to stay over the road. Felt like a long time. A long time. Plays tricks on your mind. It's not a sensation you normally get making a skydive.
With over 4 minutes of flying, Adrian has spent more time in free fall than anyone other than the space jumper Kittinger. But more importantly, he's traveled 9 miles from the point he left the aircraft. The GPS computer confirms the distance as a world record for human flight.
It still feels like a lie saying it now, but I flew 9 miles thanks to Patrick de Gaillardon's wings, and it was fabulous. I got over 4 minutes. 4 minutes seems forever. It's wonderful. It's beautiful. You see the ground rushing past underneath you, and you really travel. You hear the speed in your ears. I've waited to do this for so long. So thanks, Patrick.
Adrian achieved a dream that many have died for. With the wings invented by Patrick and the support and ingenuity of Katerina, Adrian has put himself in the record books. His own brand of athletic skill and determination have made him the first human being to break all the rules. Adrian has flown further than any other human being.
I've always wanted to fly. I believed in Peter Pan until I was about 28 or 29. I used to have dreams that I could fly. I'm very lucky. Leonardo da Vinci gave his right arm for one day as me, which is bizarre really, because I don't suppose anybody else would. Life is a risk. There's a huge risk in life. The biggest risk in life is that you'll waste it. Is that you'll be 80 years old and kicking yourself saying, if only I'd done this, oh, I wish I'd done that. The biggest risk in life is that you waste your opportunity of living it.